Public notice. Attention, world governments and President Trump. August 20, 2020 by Anna von Reitz. Everyone please feel free to send copies of this public notice. Notice to agents as notice to principals, notice to principals as notice to agents, to all United Nations personnel, all governmental services personnel, and all judicial officers and politicians, all over the world. This circumstance needs to be fully and widely comprehended, including by the present members of Congress. Public notice to all world governments and President Trump. There are no 14th Amendment citizens of the United States. Our constitutional process requires ratification by the states of the Union. No such ratification process was completed with respect to the so-called 14th Amendment, or any following amendment. No change to any actual constitution was created by the territorial Congress legislation related to the so-called 14th Amendment or any subsequent similar action. In fact, the enactment clause of all such legislation since 1860 has provided that the new action changes no right thus previously established. This means that all rights existing in 1860 have been sequentially established and grandfathered in and are inherited by the progeny as secured material rights and interests. But beyond these facts, lack of ratification and the nature of the secured rights guaranteed to Americans, there are these further inconvenient facts. The Constitution, that includes the 14th Amendment, wasn't a constitution in the same sense as the actual constitutions that establish our federal government. The Constitution, to which the 14th Amendment applied, was instead the published Articles of Incorporation of a Scottish commercial corporation established in 1868 that was merely doing business as the United States of America, Incorporated. This semantic deceit of naming a commercial corporation after our unincorporated federation of states allowed the criminals responsible to access our credit under conditions of constructive fraud and deceit, and allowed them to steal our identity in exactly the same manner as a credit card hacker pretends to be the victim in order to access the victim's credit. The amendments to this document, published as the Constitution of the United States of America, Incorporated, that is, merely represent corporation by laws and do not require ratification by the states. That's why these amendments were never ratified and did not require ratification. That Scottish corporation, DBA the United States of America, Incorporated, went bankrupt in 1906 and entered receivership. Its bankruptcy was finally settled in 1953. It is well, truly, and absolutely defunct. As a result, whatever 14th Amendment citizenship was created or conferred by this document, or by the organization sponsoring it, became defunct, also. We shall not belabor the point that no commercial corporation had any ability to confer actual citizenship of any kind on anyone. We shall not dwell on the fact that these criminal activities by the members of our own military and the members of the then territorial Congress resulted in constructive fraud against our lawful government and the theft of our credit and assets misapplied on a vast scale. The facts are the facts and they stand naked to view. The other principles that allowed this scam, the Pope, the British monarch, and the Lord Mayor of London, Government of Westminster, are at fault and in gross breach of trust. We, the remnant of the progeny, who have established our claims as qualified inheritors of the assets and credit owed to the lawful government of this country, the unincorporated Federation of States, have absolute standing in the matter all the way back to 1860 and before. We are the victims of deliberate constructive fraud and semantic deceit practiced upon us in gross breach of trust by our own misdirected employees and the aforementioned principles. All American assets are claimed. All trust properties and derivatives established in our names are claimed. All our gold misappropriated and transported to the Philippines is claimed. All gold illegally confiscated by the Franklin Delano Roosevelt administration is claimed, including the 6,000 tons used to back and bankroll the Federal Reserve, and the additional 14,000 tons admitted to by FDR, which were used as slush funds and investment accounts, used to buy controlling interests in the Fortune 500 corporations and otherwise manipulate commodity markets, including international currency markets. It is important for the world and for the American people and for the President and the politicians that have inherited this mess, as well as the World Bank, the IBRD, and the Federal Reserve, which are all fundamentally responsible for this heist of the ages, to understand that they, the banks, the politicians, and the misdirected, U.S. military have been caught, red-handed. The entire history and fakery of this entire circumstance is known, exposed, and is due justice. When a credit card hacker steals someone's identity and accesses their credit without their knowledge or permission, the victim is held harmless, and their credit is returned by the bank. In the same way, the identity of our lawful government, our unincorporated federation of states doing business as the United States of America, has been stolen, and our credit has been ransacked, and our federation is owed the same consideration by the banks. Not only that, but we are owed compensation from those responsible for this gross breach of trust. The Queen, the Lord Mayor, and most of all, the Pope, are fully cognizant of the meaning, actuality, and content of the treaties and the constitutions they hold with the American people. They also have cause to know that we were never involved in their American Civil War, which was an illegal mercenary conflict on our shores. The guilt and responsibility for all of this most particularly devolves upon the Pope, because the Pope in fact owned both sides of the conflict. He has always directly controlled the municipal United States and via his overseer of the Commonwealth, the British monarch, has controlled the territorial United States government as well. In practical terms, the responsibility for paying damages to the United States of America and to the American states and people next devolves upon the UN Corporation and the United Nations Organization, their heirs and successors. The realization of the enormity of the fraud and breach of trust has stunned the world and given rise to a great deal of talk about everyone ganging up on the Americans, who have been the victims of this as much or more than anyone else. Any such action would be completely immoral and illegal and unlawful. It would destroy any concept of, or hope of, justice for anyone living in this world. The problem has never been the victims, the actual Americans. The problem has always been the U.S., those pretending to represent the Americans, while in fact hacking our credit and evading their obligations under the actual constitutions, the Constitution of the United States of America, which the Queen owes, and the Constitution of the United States, which the Pope directly owes. Now, we've said our say. It's here for everyone to see and examine for themselves. The public records are clear and secured. Pope Benedict XVI admitted it. Pope Francis is clearly aware of it. Antonio Guterres is fully informed. Other national governments have been fully informed. President Trump and the Joint Chiefs have been fully informed. The Office of the Prosecutor at the International Court of Justice has been fully informed. Interpol, the FBI, the DIA, the CIA, DHS, Homeland Security, and the NSA have all been fully informed. The United States of America and the American states and people are owed the return of their credit and their assets free and clear of debt or encumbrance. We are to be held harmless, fully restored, and compensated by the banks, recognized by all principals and governmental services corporations as the lawful government of this country, and the actual employers in this scenario. As the delegators of all delegated powers, we are bypassing those foreign agents who are responsible for this mess, and presenting ourselves in these matters under our reserved powers and those powers that have returned to us by operation of law from the Federal Republic. All presumptions attached to the existence of any 14th Amendment citizenry must cease immediately. Bank foreclosures based on these presumptions must cease, and bank escrow accounts established on the basis of these presumptions must be converted and returned to the victims of this fraud. Worldwide mechanisms designed to hypothecate both credit and debt and to sequester such credit and debt as energy units held in generation skipping trusts must be dissolved in favor of the victims of this scheme. The balance as money of account must be made available to them and to their lawful governments. These private and public assets have been purloined and mischaracterized by the banks and insurance corporations as personal assets, a circumstance that must be rectified. Our lawful government has prepared a structured repayment and release plan, and the technology to deliver it, that will allow the repayment of credit without collapsing the world economy. It's time to stop pretending that all this nastiness didn't happen and more than past time for a jubilee and a restitution made to all nations. Links to Anna's articles and resources can be found in the video description box. Thank you for subscribing, liking and sharing. If you enjoy having Anna's latest articles made into videos, please consider making a purchase from Ed's website sacredintuitiveelements.com. Thank you.